Welcome back to LarryB YouTube channel. In today's class we're going to learn how to make this beautiful fitted bubu dress. Okay, it's a bubu dress, but it is fitted with a bustier cut. It has a armhole princess dart, and it also has a flounce with inverted pleats on the sides and also a basic sleeve, a basic long sleeve. It's a really packed tutorial and it's very beautiful and simple to make. If this is something you would like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so this is a fitted dress and it has armhole princess dart. So I'm going to be starting with the armhole princess dart. I already drafted it. This dart has these 2 inches dart on the waist, and it also has a bust dart as well. So I have a detailed tutorial on how to draft this already on the channel, because this is going to be a long tutorial. That's why I don't want us to go through all of that again. If you don't know how to draft this, you can check out that tutorial. So now I'm just going to go ahead now. I cut out my pattern pieces, so I'm going to cut the center fold first, and then I'm going to go ahead to close up my bust dart. Okay, after closing the bust dart, I'm going to cut out the waist dart as well, and then I'm going to go and cut it on my fabric. So using my masking tape, I'm closing up this dart, and then I'll cut this as well. So when you're cutting, make sure that you don't have any sharp edge, especially on the bust area. Everything has to blend really well. Okay, so this is what I have now. So I'll go and cut this now on my fabric for my front, and then for the back it's just a regular pattern. I have my waist dart here, so I'm just going to cut it as a single piece, and then I'm going to take my dart when I'm sewing. So I'll go and cut this on my fabric now. So like I said, it's a full dress that has an half length, so all these stops around the waistline, so you need a skirt to join to it to make a full dress. So to cut our skirt, I'm working with this Ankara fabric. So for the skirt, I'm going to be folding the front and back together. So I'll first fold into 2, so you can see. I'll fold this into 2 like this, and then after arranging it well, I'm going to fold again into 4. So this time this has a zipper. You can see a zipper allowance on the half length of the back. So I'm going to fold, but when I'm folding, I'm not going to fold this completely. I'm going to leave the 1 inch for my zipper allowance. So this folded part here is going to be my center front, and these 2 open parts that has the allowance is going to be my center back. So we'll just go ahead and mark our measurement so that we can cut out the skirt. So this upper part here is going to be my starting point. So I'm just going to mark out the selvage area because I don't want it to be present. So here I'm marking that point out. So now this is my new starting point. So now on my starting point, I'm going to take my waist measurement. This is for a big size, so the waist measurement is 38. 38 divided by 4 is 9.5. So I'm going to mark 9.5 here. Okay, and then I'm going to mark 1 inch for my dart. Okay, after that I'm going to mark the 1.5 inches that I'm going to use for my seam allowance. So from there I'm going to mark my hip line. Okay, depending on how you take your hip line, if your hip line is taken from your shoulder, all you just need to do is subtract the half length. So my half length is actually 17 inches. So you can see I'll just bring my tape to the 17 inches on my waistline, and then my hip line is 26 inches. So I can now mark the 26 inches here. Okay, and actually my hip length from my waist is actually 9 inches. You can see that it is the same thing. So now I have my hip length. The next thing is for me to mark my knee length as well. It's like a pencil dress. So here from there again, my knee length is 38 inches. So there I'm going to mark the 38 inches here, and then my full length is 60 inches. So from there I'm going to go ahead and mark the 60 inches there as well. Okay, so I'm going to make all of this marking into a straight line so that we can take our circumference measurement to shape this skirt. Okay, it's been a while we have done something like this on the channel, so I'm really excited for this. So now that we have this, I have taken my waist circumference. I'll go ahead and take my hip circumference as well. So my hip is 46 divided by 4 is 11.5. so I have 11.5 inches here, and then 1.5 inches for my seam allowance. So after taking that, now you use a curved ruler to join your waist and hip together. My ruler is not here, so I'm just using this straight ruler, but make sure you use the curved ruler. Okay, so now for the knee, to shape the skirt, so usually from my hip measurements, I used to take like 1 inch or 1.5 inches from my hip measurement. So the hip is 11.5 inches. So taking 1 inch from it, that's going to give you 10.5. That's depending on how fitted you want it to be there. Remember, there's going to be a slit, so you can walk easily. And this hip measurement was, this knee measurement was not on the exact knee. My exact knee is 40 inches, so I took it 2 inches above the knee. All of this is just to make sure that you can walk freely in this. So if I take 1.5, I'll have 10 inches, and then I'm going to add 1.5 inches to that as well. So what I'm going to do now is to shape from that hip all the way to my knee. So you can see now that our hip shape now is out. Because I used the straight ruler, I'm trying to blend that in. Then this same measurement that I have here on my knee, that's 11.5 in total. I'm going to go ahead and take that measurement on the hem as well, and then I'm going to make it into a straight line all down. So that's how you draft the lower part. That's the skirt part of your full dress. So after marking all the drafting that we need to do, I'll just go ahead now and cut this with my scissors. So if you are going to be lining this, once you fix your lining, the same way you have cut out your main fabric, you're going to go ahead and cut your lining as well. I'm not fixing the lining on this, so I'm just working with my regular main fabric. Okay, so now I have cut out my skirt pattern, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut the selvage area off on the waistline, and I'm going to notch my dart. Okay, remember we have not taken our dart. So for the dart, from my center front, I'm going to mark 4 inches here, and then the dart leg is going to be 5 inches for me, 5.5 inches. So there I'm going to mark a straight line. I want to be sure that I have 4 inches here. Okay, so I'll mark my straight line, and then I'm going to take 1/2 inch on both sides, and then connect this to my dart leg, just like you take your regular dart. And then I'm going to go ahead and notch that side so that I can easily place my dart when I'm ready to sew. Okay, so this is the front. You can see that the front is closed, and this is the back. You can see that the back is open because of the, and we did not do any butt allocation for this, so it's just a straight back cut. So you can see the hip shape that we have there as well. So I'll go ahead and cut my half length so that we can start to sew. So I have gone ahead to cut out my bodies. You can see I added allowances on my dart area, and this is the back. So I'm just going to go ahead and notch where I want to place my dart for the back as well. and then this is the side. So when you're cutting, please, because we are joining to it, remember to always add allowance on the waistline to join it to the lower part. I had it in mind when I was drafting my pattern, so I already added it to mine. Okay, so this is what we'll have. The next thing now is to remove these pins, but before I do that, I forgot to cut out my neckline. You can see that I have this. So the neck width that I want, I have 3 inches natural neckline here, so I want to increase this by 1 inch. So I'm going to be working with a neck width of 4 inches. You can do whatever you want. And then for the front, my neck depth is going to be around 3 inches for the front, and I'm going to use my cuff to connect that. Okay, and of course for the back, the neck width remains the same, which is 4 inches, and then the neck depth now is going to be 1 inch for the back. It has this this is 1 1/4. It has this collar at the neckline. Okay, so I'm just going to bring in my ruler again and connect this as well, so I can now cut this out. So I have cut out my neckline. Now the next thing now is to detach my pattern from my fabric. Okay, so for the front, for the center front, it has a design. Okay, so for the design, depending on the width that you want for your design, mine I want it to be around just 3 inches wide on the waistline. So on the waistline for 3 inches, remember this is a half bodice, so I'll divide that into 2, and that's going to be 1 1/2. So on the waistline here, I'm going to mark out the 1 1/2 inches. I'll do the same on my under bust. I'll do the same thing for my bust point and also my shoulder. This is totally up to you. It depends on the style that you want. So I'm going to connect all of these, and after connecting them, I'm going to take my curved ruler, and then on my shoulder I'm going to come in by 1 inch or 1 1/2 inches from the tip of the shoulder. So I'm coming in by 1 1/2 inches, and then I'm going to take my curved ruler to connect from here all the way to that point. So please use a better ruler. I'm just managing this one that I have now. So you can see I'm taking it in bits. Just use something down. I'll take everything for you all at once. So now I can see this, and then I'm going to continue connecting, and then I'm going to blend in with what I have coming from here. So I'll just look for a way to blend it. This is not the actual cut ruler to use. So now that I have this, you make sure that this part is cut on fold. I'm going to cut it out now, and then I'm going to cut out this shape on my plain fabric, and then I'll add seam allowance for sewing it on the side. So I'm cutting this out now, and then I'll place it on my plain fabric and cut it out. So I have cut it out. You can cut 2 of this if you want to use them to turn each other before placing, but I just have one, so I'm just going to fold it in. I'm going to fold in my allowance and iron it down, okay, before I cut it. So after this now, I'm going to go ahead and use my Ankara fabric to cut a strip at the center. Okay, there's one long strip at the center here, so it's going to be around 1 inch in width. So I'll just measure around 1 1/4 on fold, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn it out. You can turn it out or just leave allowances to fold it in before you sew as well. So just like I explained, I have gone ahead to cut this, and then I folded in my 1/2 inch seam allowance, okay, and then I ironed it down. So now it's going to be easier for me to just place and then sew, because I already know where I am sewing. And then for the Ankara fabric, I just cut out a fabric of around 1 1/2 inches thereabouts, okay, and then I folded in like 1/4 inch on both sides, and this is what it looks like. So after sewing this on my center front, I'm just going to place this at the midpoint as well, and then I'm going to sew it down. Okay, so this is my center front. So to guide me, I'm going to put it on fold, and then I'll notch the center point. I'll do the same thing for the neckline as well, so that it can be centralized. So now after notching, I'm going to bring in my pattern as well, and then notch the center point. I'll do the same thing as well for the neckline. So what I just need to do is to match all of them together. Okay, so this is my center front. So now to place this, I'm just going to match the notches together. This is the one on the waistline. I'm going to match it and then pin down. Okay, then you go over to your neckline, you look for where you have your notches as well, and then you match it up. So I'm going to make it straight, and then I'll pin. So after pinning it down, you can now arrange the sides. So because we have ironed this, you can see that it's already forming on its own. So you just arrange it well, and then I'm going to go ahead and use my pins on this side as well. You can do it without the pin, you can, but I just like to make work easier. So I'm just going to pin it down so that it will be easier for me to work on. Okay, so please make sure you're using a good pin. You don't want it to ruin your fabric. Okay, so the same way I've pinned this, I'm going to pin it down on the other side. Then I'm going to bring in the Ankara as well. I'm going to notch it and then match the notches together and place at the center point like this. So I'll sew all of this now and bring it back to show us what we have. Okay, so I have gone ahead to sew them, and you can see how beautiful it is looking. Okay, so assuming you are fixing a lining to this, you must have cut your lining the same way you have cut your main fabric as well. Okay, for the main bodies, but I'm not fixing lining to mine. And then if you're adding your wording, you attach the wording as well. So I'm just going to go ahead now and join mine. I'm going to join the sides together. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and join the two sides together just like this. You can see that it is looking neat. So you can just weave these edges before or after you have sewn it. So now I'll go ahead now and sew the darts together, and then for the back as well, I'm going to take my darts. Okay, the darts that I notched there, I'm going to take in the dart and then bring it back for us to join the skirt. Okay, so I have taken my dart, so you can see the back. Okay, the two back for the dart is taken now, and then this is the front. So I have gone ahead to sew my cup for the front as well. So now the next thing is for you to go ahead and iron the bustier dart very well, so that you can have something really nice. So after ironing it, we're going to bring in the skirt. Then I'm going to sew in the darts. Remember the darts that we took here, we'll sew it in. Then after that, we're going to join the upper part and the lower part together. So I'll go ahead and do this as well. Okay, so I have gone ahead to take the dart, and then I have joined the front, the upper and the lower part of the front, and these are my two back. Okay, I just took the dart as well, and then I joined it together. So you can see my seam line. So because I'm not fixing lining to this, I'll need to weave all of these edges to make sure it's neat. But if you are fixing lining to yours, you must have sewn your lining this exact same way. So you just use them to turn out each other. It is that simple. So now what I'm going to do now is to go ahead and join my zipper allowance with my gather stitch temporarily, because I'm still going to put a zipper here. So I want them to be together for me to work easily. So I'm going to go ahead and join them. Then after that, I'll join the front and back together on the shoulder seam before we cut the flounce. Okay, so I have gone ahead to join it on the shoulder, and you can see. So the next thing now is to create our flounce. So to create the flounce, you need to measure where the flounce is going to go through. Okay, so for me, I want it to be around I want it to be around 4 inches above my knee length. Okay, remember my knee is 38 inches, so from my waistline, which is 17, I'm going to measure to around 34 inches, 33 or 34 inches, which is around here. Okay, so to take this measurement from my shoulder, from the shoulder point, I'm going to take my tape now and measure around the armhole, and then I'm going to stop this where my allowance starts, which is here. Okay, so I'm going to take it like this and then measure around my armhole. Then from there, I'm just going to measure it down to the seam allowance. The flounce is going to enter into the seam allowance here. Okay, so you can see I'm taking the measurement from my shoulder. This is the shoulder. The armhole is going to go through the armhole, and then I'm going to take it down all the way to where I measure. So I have about 33 inches here, 33.5 inches. So I'll multiply that by 2. Remember, we have for both front and back, and that's going to leave me with around 60, 66, 67 inches. So I'm going to use that to cut out a half circle flare. So to cut this half circle flare, I'm going to be illustrating with this paper. So I'm going to put the paper on fold into 2 first, like this. After putting it on fold by 2, I'm going to create like a triangle. You see, so you can see I'm folding it like a triangle. After folding it to 2, then you take one edge of the mark to meet this edge here. Okay, like a triangle. So that's how you fold your half circle 180-degree flare. So after folding like this, the 67 inches that I have as my circumference, I'm going to divide that by 3.142. So I'm going to divide the 67 by 3.142. That's a constant, okay, for half circle flare. That's going to give me about 19 to 20 inches. So that 19 to 20 inches is going to be what I'm going to measure from my so from the starting point here, I'm going to measure down 19.5 inches. I'm going to measure it down. So I'm just going to assume it's around here. So you measure it all around like that. The 19.5 inches, you measure it all around. Then after measuring it, you connect it like this, and then from there you are going to measure the length of your flare. Okay, so for me, I want it to be a little above my elbow. Remember, you're still going to have your pleats round it, so the total length that I want is around 10 inches. So the pleat is going to be around 2 inches, so that's 8 inches for me. So from here, I'm just going to mark 8.5 inches or 9 inches for seam allowance of joining. So here I'm going to mark the 8.5 inches from the radius all around like this. So 8.5 inches. After marking it, you're going to connect it, and then you go ahead and cut this out. You can also use a full circle flare, but I feel it will be so full for a style like this. So half circle is preferable, or you just work with your slash and spread method. So now after cutting it out, this is what it looks like. You can see that the circle is not a round circle, it's not a full circle, it is half of a circle. So now you are going to put it on fold again, and then this part, this open part here, I'm going to measure down 1 inch for joining this to the dress, and then the lower part I need half an inch to join it to my outfit, and then I need another half an inch to join the pleat. So that's why I'm marking the 1 inch. So I have 1 inch like this, and after matching the 1 inch, I'm going to connect it to this point like this in a slanting form. So you make sure that it blends very well to what is coming from the starting point here. So after blending it, I'll bring in my scissors, and then I'm going to trim it down like this. So you see that, remember, this part is going to be where your shoulder is. Shoulder, this is where you are going to place on your shoulder. This is going to be for the back, this is going to be for the front, and then as it goes to your knee area, you can see that it becomes narrow and up to where you have it here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this on my fabric. So I'll cut one on my main fabric, and then the other one I'm going to cut it for my lining, because I'm going to be lining this. So I have gone ahead to cut it. Like I said, I have this as my lining and this as my main fabric, and then you can see that I shaped the edge just like I explained. You can see that the shoulder area, that's the folded part, is wider than what we have as it goes to the knee area. So now the next thing I'm going to do now is to create my inverted plate. So again, I'm going to be illustrating this with my paper. So I'm going to measure 6 inches, okay, for the length of my inverted plate. It's going to be 6 inches. So here I'll mark the 6 inches, and then I'm going to cut out the excess that I have. It can be more than 6 inches. This is totally up to you. Depends on how long you want that plate to be. So after marking the 6 inches, I'm going to cut off the excess, and then the width is going to be the width of your flounce multiplied by 2 or 3. Okay, so this is what I mean. Remember, let me use the paper that is smaller. So for you to know how long this strip of fabric is going to be, you need to measure this, not the inner circle, not the radius part. You measure this outer part. That's where we are going to sew this to. So you measure around it, whatever you have, you multiply it by 2 or 3. That's going to be how long this fabric is going to be, but the length for me is going to be 6 inches. So after getting it like that, the 6 inches that you have here, you're going to put it on fold like this. So when you put it on fold, you have about 3 inches like that. So after putting it on fold, I'll take it to my sewing machine. I'm going to close it on the 2 edges, and then I'll start to form the pleat. So for the pleat, it's an inverted pleat, like a kissing pleat. So one is going to come like this. You can see I'm folding it, and then the other one is going to meet it like this to form your inverted pleat. So you can see it's an inverted pleat. So now for the next one, I'm going to mark 3 inches from where this pleat stops. I'm going to mark 3 inches, which is here, and then I'll go ahead and form another pleat on that point, another inverted pleat like this, and then this other one as well is going to come like this. So this pleat can be around 1/2 inch or 1 inch. That's the folding that you are doing inwards, depending on the amount of fabric you have. So after folding that one, here where this stops, I'm going to measure another 3 inches, and then I'm going to create another inverted plate. Okay, I'm going to create another inverted plate, and then I'll mark another 3 inches. So that's how you're going to go ahead to create the inverted plate for all the long strip that you have. Okay, so I have done this for on my fabric. So you can see how long it is. I have created my pleats, and this is what it looks like. Okay, so you can see after creating it, remember that is going flat because it's a paper. That's why you can easily flatten it out. But for this, after creating it, it was puffy, so you need to take it to this ironing table to iron it flat so that it can lay very flat like we have it here. So I have created my own pleat, and this is what I have. And then you can see that I have 3 inches between each of the inverted pleats that I have here. You can see the pleat is facing each other. That's why it's called kissing pleat. Okay, so now that I have this pleat, I'm going to bring in my flare and then sew it to the edge of the flare. So this is my flare now. You see that outer part, not the inner part, not the radius part. This outer part here, I'm going to bring this pleat now and place it like this. Remember, we left 1 inch at the tip, so that's half for sewing the flare, the pleat, and half for joining it to our bodies. So I'll place it like this and then sew it all around the flare, after which I'm going to turn it with my lining. So I have gone ahead to sew the pleats now to the edges. As you can see, this is what it looks like, but it is looking really rough on the inside. So now if you are not fixing lining, you just edge it so that the fabric I'm working with is a satin. You can see how it's just coming off. Fabric is fraying, so for me, I'm going to place the lining on it like this, and then I'll use that to turn it neatly. So I'll just place it wrong side facing right side, and then I'm going to sew it all around so that I can cover it up. So I have covered it up now, and you can see how neat it is looking. Okay, so this is what the wrong side looks like. So you just need to iron it flat, and then we'll take it straight to our dress. So I have my dress here now, and I'm going to lay it. So you can see I'm laying it on the table, and I've notched the midpoint of my flounce. So I'm just going to place the midpoint that I notched. I'm going to place it right side facing right side. That's Ankara facing Ankara against the shoulder joining here. Then I'm going to sew it to the armhole up to where my allowance is, which is here, and then from there you can see I'm placing it. So from there I'll just take it all down. Okay, but it must enter into your seam allowance because you don't want all of this outside. So once you get here, you just take it all down, and then the same thing you have done here, you go ahead and do it to the other side as well. You sew it like this all around, and then from here you take it down. So when you get to this tip, okay, when you sew it and then you get to the tip here, okay, this pleat, this outer pleat, I don't want it to be dangling outside here, so I'm just going to bring it straight like this and then sew it down as well. So I have sewn it down now, as you can see, and then once it gets here, I just turned it like this all the way to my knee area. So I did the same thing on the other side. So everything that we are doing here, we are going to do to the other armhole as well. So now the next thing is to fix the sleeve. So I already cut out my sleeve. It's a long sleeve. Okay, the tutorial on how to cut a basic sleeve is already on the channel if you don't know how to. So what I'm going to do now is to go ahead and hem it on the lower part here, and then I'm going to notch the midpoint of the sleeve. So after notching it, I'm going to place the sleeve on that notch part. I'm going to place it against my shoulder again, and then I'm going to sew it round my armhole. Remember, this is your actual armhole, we still have it there. So I'll go ahead and hem it now, and then sew the sleeve round the armhole. So the sleeve is hemmed now, and then I have sewn it round my armhole, as you can see. So you can see that it has covered the rough edge that we have from our flounce, so that when you raise your hand, you're not going to be seeing anything rough underneath the flare that you have there. So now the last thing to do now is to close this up. Now you're going to tuck in the flare, and then we'll go ahead and then sew the side seam. Okay, so we're going to shape the dress. Now you're going to sew using the same allowance that you left. So you tuck in your flounce because you don't want it to be in your way, and then you go ahead and sew the side of the dress. Okay, so I have gone ahead to sew it on the sides, and this is what it looks like. So you can see the way our flounce just goes, and everything has to enter into your seam allowance for it to be this neat. Okay, so you can see this is the front, this is the back, and then this is our sleeve coming out from it. So this is for the first side, and I repeated the same thing for the second side, just like I explained. So you can see how neat it is. It has to come out this neat. Okay, so now the next thing to do now is to create our collar. So for the collar, you just need to measure around your neckline. Then after measuring around your neckline, whatever measurements you have there, use that to create your bishop collar. And after that, I'm going to fix my zipper, and that is it. Okay, so now I have installed my zipper, and then I've also fixed my collar. You can see my collar here. So now we're going to take it to the mannequin so that we can see what this looks like. So here on the center front, you use your plain fabric to make cover buttons, and then you sew it at this midpoint. But I don't want to place button for mine, so I'm just going to leave it like this. But you can just take this plain fabric and use it to do like 4 or 5 cover buttons, and then you tack it to this center point. Okay, so this is what our beautiful bubu dress looks like. You can see how neat and beautiful this is, and you can see that we have a lot going on with this beautiful dress. It's really beautiful and it's very simple to make, as we have seen. I hope you enjoyed making this beautiful tutorial with me. If you enjoyed this, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.